Tipp today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Good morning, you're very welcome to Tipp Today with me, Stephen Gleeson, filling in here this morning for Fran and in for the week. We're up in Nina this morning. Leanne is producing outside. Our free phone number here is 1800 938 007, or you can text us on 083 311 3311 for whatever you would like to get in touch about. And we have a very action-packed show today, so I do hope you will stay tuned. We'll go live shortly to the UK for a rundown on President Catherine Connolly's recent visit, and Tipp GAA Board have a new cashless policy, so we'll be discussing that a little bit later on. Animal advocate and campaigner Gerry Boland will take a look at the farming industry as well, and health insurance expert Dermot Goode will answer your queries as well. Siobhan MacGowan will be here live in studio, and our GP Pat Harold will look at some strange illnesses that are doing the rounds across the globe currently. So we've all this and much more. And just before we go to the phone lines, we'll have a quick look at what's in the papers this morning. The local papers are out today, so beginning with the local one here, the Nina Guardian. The front page is a community in mourning, and that's about the funeral of a much-loved daughter, twin and friend, Laura Kennedy, may she rest in peace, who passed away in a road traffic accident at the weekend and plunged the region into shock. The Nationalist leads with the demolition of Cashel houses. Council decision follows a long-running planning dispute, it says there in that article by John Gleeson there on the front page of the Nationalist. The Tipperary Star then has a photo of the Munster champions, Roisin Howard, Caoimhe Stacklem and Mairead Everston, after last weekend's game where Tipp defeated Waterford to win the Munster Senior Camogie Championship. And the article there by Sean Ryan says calls to make more of Thurles GAA links, and the GAA feel that they are selling themselves a little bit short, and they would like to look more to Thurles and bring it back as to the forefront of the GAA as the 150th anniversary of the founding of the organisation occurs in 2034. So that's the headline on the Star. Nationally then, to have a look at those briefly before we go to the phone lines. The Irish Examiner leads with powder cocaine cases seen in every county, and it's a sign of the times, I guess. Treatment for cocaine surged to new heights last year with an emerging trend of increased use of synthetic drugs and ketamine. So some new drugs out there at the moment causing havoc in Irish life. And then the Irish Independent goes with emotional scenes at the vigil for Eve's Sakila, and there were emotional scenes on Henry Street in Dublin at the vigil after Eve's died after being restrained by security guards following an alleged shoplifting incident in Arnott's in Dublin, and Gardaí are investigating his death, and that's on the front of the Irish Independent. While the Irish Times then goes with rents surged by highest level on record after new rules, and rents grew by 4.4% between December and March. Daft.ie reports, and the average monthly rent for a two-bedroom apartment is €2,176, a massive increase, almost double in 10 years. So that's what's on the papers, and one that's been dominating this week, I suppose, is the story of President Catherine Connolly and her trip over to the UK, and I'm delighted to be joined now by Gerry Malumbi, who has been covering the story over there for the Irish Post. Good morning, Gerry.
Hello, Stephen. Good morning to you.
Good to hear from you, Gerry. It's
yeah. I'm just saying you're filling in very well there for Fran. He better watch out.
Thanks very much, Gerry. Well, I suppose beginning with this, you're, a Tipperary man. You're over there working with the Irish Post and covering this story. It's received a good lot of coverage, and it's important for the Irish people across the waters.
It is, Stephen, because the Irish president, since the presidency of I call them the two Marys and Michael D, has become a kind of the president of the global Irish. Growing up in Tipperary in the 70s, the president was in the Áras and he went to Croke Park, for the All Ireland and whatever. But we didn't see much. He did go around the country, and it was a he. Now, since the two Marys and Michael D, they're very much focused on the global Irish nation. So when Catherine Connolly was coming over, we were all very excited, and she's been a gracious lady, and we were pleased to see her. She came first to Hammersmith, lovely Irish centre in London, and there was Irish music and Irish dancing, and then she went upstairs to a lovely Irish language workshop, which kind of feeds into her passion for the Irish language. And there's a resurgence of the Irish language in amongst the Irish centres here in the UK. And she spoke about that Irish people in Britain have entered every facet of English life, not just in construction or in nursing, but in politics, in the economy, finance, media, as you know. And in the afternoon, as she went to the palace, we kind of knew that was about to happen, and she invited the king to visit the UK, which it seems he might be doing next year.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then she went to so it was all very exciting. And then she hosted a reception in the embassy for the community groups.
Oh, it's been action packed, and
yes.
She seemed to. I've got a great quote from her here in relation to the survivors of the Magdalene laundries and the mother and baby homes, and she says, "My own life has been entangled with survivors on a personal level and a professional level for almost all of my adult life. I had been given the privilege of knowing it from every angle as a domestic who cleaned in an industrial school where my own family had been, to going back as a psychologist, to working as a barrister and representing survivors in the redress board. My own life has been an absolute spiral of going up and then back down," she added. They're very strong words from President Connolly.
Yeah. And she said that in I think, it was Camden Irish Centre yesterday. And to give credit to the Irish government, there's a lot of Irish organisations who are involved with the Redress Board and advising people who may have been in these institutions in Ireland to connect with the Irish government and to tell their story and to receive appropriate counselling and redress. And that's funded through the Department of Foreign Affairs. And many of the Irish centres and Irish welfare organisations in the UK are involved in that. Because England is so close to Ireland, many people who left these institutions, they didn't go to America. They came to the UK. And for many years, they may not have told that story. And even their children may not have known that story. So it's a very sensitive area. But to give credit to the government and the Irish community here in the UK, it's been addressed, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose she met a lot of people there, maybe some that haven't been back to Ireland in a number of decades, maybe some that travel back regularly, but the importance of the visit cannot be underestimated.
You're right. And every event she's been at, I'm heading off to Leeds now after I speak to you. What she's been doing is working the room, frankly, going around to people in small tables at all these venues, trying to meet as many people as possible. And, she's a good listener, and she advocates for the Irish, yeah.
And she gave a speech then in at the Irish Embassy last night. What were the key points from that one, Gerry?
Yeah, well, I suppose you could call that her kind of keynote speech. She talked about something that Michael D used to talk about, and Mary Robinson and Mary McAleese, about the money that was sent home to Ireland in the 40s and 50s by the thousands. There were the thousands coming to England at that time, after the war and the Irish economy, and money that was sent home. And she talked about money that helped to buy farms, money that helped to put people through college and education. That money kept the Irish economy afloat, and that's a well-known fact. And she paid credit to the peacekeeping forces of the Irish army, and she just, again, in her own unique way, affirmed the Irish in Britain to continue, their involvement in, as I said, every aspect of English life. She did. She spoke very passionately. She had a lovely phrase about in the world that we have the powerful, unrestrained kind of leaders who are. I heard it to mean that she was talking about leaders who were angry rather than being passionate. But I'm looking forward to again see what she has to say in Leeds.
And how has the visit, been accepted by the British people, who may not have that connection with Ireland? What's the feeling in the press and amongst the general public over there?
It's good. I mean, I suppose the main story is her meeting the King and inviting him to visit Ireland. But there's a great kind of tolerance amongst the people in Britain. We're at a different place now, relationship between Ireland and Britain. And since the Good Friday Agreement, etc., we're in a much better place. And like I said earlier, lots of Irish people are involved in politics, in teaching. We're very much not accepted, but we're in a much better place.
And the London Irish Centre, that is, a core place in the heart of England.
Absolutely, set up by the Oblates, priests. It was a hostel for young Irish men back in the 50s. But again, credit to the Irish government, because they're working closely with the Irish Centre there in Camden, and it's going to be closed for about a year for a major renovation. So it's going to become one of the global Irish arts centres in the world, with disabled access and a brand new stage. So they're doing a major renovation on it. They fundraised themselves, but they got some support from the Irish government. And especially for London, it's synonymous with the Irish in London, along with Hammersmith. And then there's Birmingham. There's Nottingham, where we have a lovely Irish centre here where I live. Leeds, where I'm going to later on, has a lovely, spacious, well-managed Irish centre. And so it's a good time to be Irish in Britain.
Yeah, and the trip to Leeds then as well, that's got a huge Irish community there also, as does Liverpool, Manchester and other areas too.
Yes, you're right, Stephen. I mean, all those groups, and even I was told by the embassy that they've invited people from Scotland to come down. So she's gone back to her this morning to her alma mater. She went to university in Leeds, studied psychotherapy, and so she's gone back to her old school. And then, as I said, on to the Irish Centre to meet the Irish from Liverpool, Birmingham, Manchester, big Irish community, and it has its own lovely Irish centre. So Leeds will be a right buzz later on today.
Would you feel a lot of those people have been kind of forgotten by people in Ireland here, that Ireland just kind of moved and they got left behind? Or would you feel there is big connections in a meaningful way with the Irish now and the Irish living in England?
Good question. You see, what's very powerful and strong in the UK is the GAA and Cultus. So a lot of clubs throughout Warwickshire, London, there's a lovely stadium in Ruislip. So GAA is very big here in the UK, and that's a connection. And music with the Flaccio coming up, etc. And so lots of Irish second-generation families would be playing sports, to be involved with music. So the continuation of the culture brought over by mum and dad or the granddad continues. And that's another aspect of the success of the Irish in Britain.
Yeah, and I suppose you're looking at it there, we'd probably see it here in terms of a lot of the sporting stars. Some of the English soccer players are eligible to play for Ireland, like Declan Rice and co. Then you have the Gallaghers, who embrace their Irish roots as well, from Oasis. So there is a lot there that are very, very proud of that background, and it's made them who they are.
Yeah, and yes, it is, and it kind of it defines them. And people sometimes say to me, "Oh, I think I'm half Irish or quarter Irish," and I love to hear them saying it. But I say to them, "Look, if you're claiming Irishness, just be Irish. You don't have to be half or quarter of anything." And of course, then since Brexit and things, people have been applying for Irish passports. To claim their Irishness, and the numbers doing that are quite big, actually. Yeah.
That was something that came up recently there, talking here in our Global Matters slot, that it takes 10 years for Britain to realise it was a mistake, 10 to change, and then 10 to work their way back. Is that something you could see that Brexit will be undone down the line? And, when you have EU leaders like President Connolly going over there to visit, does all that kind of feed into the narrative somehow?
Yeah, and it's kind of in the news with who's going to replace, or is somebody going to replace Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, and is it going to be Andy Burnham from Manchester, and the Health Minister saying that Brexit was a disaster, Brexit wasn't a good thing. You're right. It could be, in terms of time, it won't happen overnight. But I think it's possibly back on the agenda, Stephen. Yeah.
Okay. Just one other thing that's come up from President Catherine Connolly's visit, and it's just in a couple of the papers here in Ireland. There's a question about breaking protocol when she met King Charles, and that she extended her arm to his in an Irish style welcome, smiling, shaking hands, but apparently you're not meant to put any hand on the king. You don't touch the king or invade his space, according to this piece that I'm reading here.
Yeah, funny. I did see that on the photographs on the president's website. No, she was just being herself. I mean, I saw her in the embassy greeting people, and when she met, like you said, older Irish immigrants or people who weren't able to stand up to meet her, she leaned over, and she's very tactile. That won't change, and I don't think King Charles was too bothered. She was just being herself, and why should she differ just because she's meeting the king? I met him once. He's a very affable man, and he likes people to be relaxed, and he's quite humorous, and he's an all-round nice guy, actually.
Right. Yeah, and I believe just others there, Michelle Obama, when she was First Lady in the US in 2009, broke protocol as well when she hugged Queen Elizabeth II. So there's precedents there in the past as well. And overall, this visit with President Connolly, it's been very well received over in Britain. That's the feeling, and she's on the way to Tipperary on Friday as well. So it's a busy schedule.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking, as you were saying that, Stephen, she's had such a busy schedule, but 3 events every day. And I know she's heading off to Tipperary on Friday, and that takes some energy. Like I said, when she goes to an event, she walks the room. She wants to meet as many as possible. And I knew she knew what she was taking on, but she's barely back in Ireland, and she's whizzing down to Tip. So she's got good energy, and she'll be a great hit down in Tipperary. She's getting the freedom of Clonmel, isn't she? Or
that's right, yeah, freedom of the borough of Clonmel.
Lovely.
So
well deserved.
A busy week. Well, Gerry, it's been great chatting to you this morning. Many thanks for taking the time out, and safe journey to Leeds after this.
All right, thanks, Stephen. All the best.
Thank you very much. That's Gerry Malumbi there of the Irish Post speaking to us from across a channel about what the story is there with President Connolly and all the rest. So a lot to cover here on this morning's show, and we're going to take a very quick break in the next moment here, and we'll be back with more then right after this.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tipp Today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
Well, you're very welcome back to Tipp Today with me, Stephen Gleeson, here this week for Fran. And just to tell you that the text line here is 083 311 3311. You can keep the texts coming in. A couple of messages there about President Connolly and that she's a good ambassador abroad, one says here. And will there be many in Clonmel to greet the President on Friday is another with a question here as well. And just to tell you as well, if you want to get some texts in or messages in to Leanne there for Dermot Goode, our health insurance expert, he'll be here just after 10 o'clock. So if you have questions there for him, line them up early so I'll be able to go through them before I chat to him on air. Well, now the West Tipperary GAA Board is reminding supporters of a new cashless policy. The board says that it is no longer permitted to accept cash as payment at entry points to matches going forward. The board is offering tap and go payment systems, and pre-buying of tickets for championship games will be made available. And John O'Shea, the former West Board chairman and current West Board assistant PRO, joins me on the line now. Good morning, John.
Morning, Stephen.
John, this is a big change of policy, and West Tipperary has always been in favour of, cash at the gate to allow people entry into matches, but it's all changed.
Yeah, Stephen, and it's all changed there. It was done in order to comply with a directive that was issued to Croke Park, which was recommended by the Tipperary GA and GA Audit and Risk Committee, and it was approved by the county executive. They have to go cashless. They have no option now at the moment, and that was taken at a meeting last week. A meeting, I must say, that I missed myself. I was away on holidays. It's a decision that I don't agree with myself personally, and I have been vocal about it in the past on a number of occasions. I think that there is room for at least one cashless cash point at all games, and I would say, I don't know why that's. Look at this. Probably again. It's these big taps coming down from Croke Park, Stephen, down to county boards, and then onto divisional boards. And it's, I can't see why there is a problem with taking a few pounds from the few people that's involved in it, because you must understand, Stephen, there are people in the communities, older people especially, that do not have a card and that do not have the means to tap and go. They have not the means to buy online. First of all, they may not have access to, Wi-Fi good enough to go online. They're not able to go online. They don't want to ask their neighbours because it takes away their independence. And people can be very, very proud. They don't have. There would be people who have supported the GA down through the years, through the lean years, volunteers, some of them mightn't have a phone, never mind a smartphone. And that's the reality in rural Ireland.
Yeah, and you're getting left behind then as a result because you're not able to access things. And now the big problem is you can't even go to a match anymore. So it is a complete change, and yet that legal tender is not accepted at the gate. It is a really unusual decision, but like it's something. How do you respond to it? How do you fight back and reverse that?
There was supposed to be something coming out last year from the EU last I think it was last June. It hasn't come out about that, about people who supply goods and services, and the GAA, in my opinion, would come under that. They are supplying a product, and they would be supposed to accept cash, legal tender for that. Now it hasn't come out. So if that comes out, what will the GAA do? Will they go ahead and fight it or whatever? But we know Croke Park would say for the big matches, the Munster Championship matches, all that they're bought online. But it's the local matches that I have the problem with. The guy who who there of an evening there might have nothing better. All of a sudden he remembers there's a match in Dundrum. I'll ramble out to Dundrum there. It could be a junior football match. It could be a junior hurling match. It could be anything. And now he can't get in.
Mm.
And because he doesn't have a card, like that's terrible. A man that has given all his life to the GAA, probably had positions within his club over the years, and now we can't. And it's the older people, and people have come to me, and you see, and I'm out and about, Stephen, which and I'm meeting people, and I'm meeting older people, and this is the problem that they have. The one thing that they had was going to matches. Local matches especially, because the divisional championships, then the county championships, and they have no independence now. This is the whole thing about it, and it might be the last thing, because there are in rural Ireland, you know yourself, Stephen, as good as what I do. There are a lot of people, a lot of older people living alone, as you said. The GAA is the last out there. They'd go a couple of times a week to games, so they would. And that is taken from them. Their independence is taken from them, and that's the big thing. And I think because it affects only really older people, and that is the big problem that I see it. And for the sake of having one, it's not putting extra personnel at matches, at most divisional matches. It's not because there is a person there anyway to scan these things in. Now, you also have a problem in lots of rural venues. There's no Wi-Fi, and there is a problem scanning tickets going in, and maybe getting enough for the tap and go on these. So, like, it to me, it's interference from on high from Croke Park, and a lot of stuff they do. There's a lot of diktats come out of Croke Park taken by faceless people, who have no idea about rural Ireland, probably never stood at a gate themselves, never have to worry about going to games. You and me are all right, Stephen, and people like us, going up to games in the media. We have our media pass and stuff like that. But it's an awful thing for people not to be able to go to games because they have they can't pay cash that they have in their pocket.
Yeah, and it's a wider thing even. I mean, like you could go to some petrol pumps, diesel pumps now, and there's nobody there to take cash either. It's like a card, or you can't fill up there. So your quality of life goes down as a result of not being able to use cash freely. And the other side of it then is everything is traceable in that, and the bank can see exactly what you spend your €5 on or where it's going all the time. So there's it's reducing the use of money in a lot of ways.
It is, but the big thing to me is it's taking away the independence of people, which is very like people might say, or the GAA might say, like, sure, can't you get your daughter to do it for you, or your son to do it, or you can get your neighbour? But that's taken away independence, and people like their independence. They don't like other people to know their business, and that's what it is about. You know what I mean? To me, but I think, as I said, it doesn't affect younger people. It does. It affects a cohort of people at the upper age limits of it, and
Well, there's a lot of people who don't.
It's not right.
Yeah, there's a good few people who don't like mobile phones of any age group. So that's it's not just one particular cohort as well. It could be others as well. I was at a match in Kilkenny doing commentary last year, and it was €5 in for entry, and a huge line of people just with their fivers ready, paying, going in, and then where you tap and go, there was much less of a queue, so most people were paying their €5 in at that stage. So this is going to be broad spread across the country now.
Yeah, and Stephen, what was wrong with that? You know, say you take in, like, are people not able or don't want to be able to manage money anymore? People in positions, you know, like, I mean, I was treasurer of my club for 4 or 5 years, handled a lot of cash, put it through it. You know, you balance your books at the end of the year. Are modern young people now, are they incapable of adding 2 and 2 together unless they can hit a button on a phone or something? And what's wrong with waltzing up to a match there with your fiver and give it to the man at the gate or the girl at the gate, and in you go. And in most of those games, Stephen, there are not big crowds at them.
Right. And John, have you a plan put in place within the West Board now to counteract this? Will there be other types of tickets made available to people within the division?
Look, there are season tickets available now, and they'll cost £80. They can be ordered through the club from the West Board treasurer. But again, you know, maybe people can't put up £80 up front, Stephen, to get the season ticket. You know, I'm not being alarmist. The harsh reality of it, we are going through a tough time economically here, and in rural Ireland with ESB bills and gas bills and food stuff's going up by the week. You know, everything is on the rise, and you know, can they throw out £80 there to buy a season ticket? You know, instead of, you know, picking the matches they want to go to. And I think it is a bad move, and that's my opinion on it. And nothing will change from this was moved back around 2021. This came in. I came in at county board matches. I think it's 2021 now. I stand corrected on that. And if it wasn't 2021 to 2022, I was against it at the time. We had it in the West. There was no problem in the West. People were very, very happy with it. To me, it worked well. About outside interference has come in now, you see it. And, you know, you see, it's like a lot of things in Ireland at the minute. That everything is taken away from the local. There is no local democracy anymore. And, you know, the clubs in the divisions decided one time on what things are doing, the clubs in the county. How many people now are going to county board meetings? The numbers have fallen drastically because there's nothing to discuss. You know, big taps come down from Croke Park and you've got to comply with them. You know, we're turning into, as an organisation, we're turning into a crowd of sheep. You know, do what you're told. And that's, to me, you know, that's not what the GAA is about at all. Yeah, it has an awful lot of broader implications than just no cash at the gate. But no cash at the gate is what's affecting a huge amount of people. You had it there in down in Cork there a few years ago. There was uproar over it again. You know what I mean? And you had it in but then counties got around. They had their own. They were able to make their own decisions, and they took decisions. I remember there was 4 or 5 years ago down at the Clare Convention, there was a motion in that there be a cash pint at every gate where there's a gate taken, and that was passed, no problem. But you see, this is not what you see. Croke Park don't want that. They can put it down. You see, they can put it down now for this. You know, everything's going back now for this revenue audits and all that, and makes it easier for people to accountability and traceability and all that. But like down at the local divisions, that shouldn't be an issue. Like, and it wasn't an issue. There was not a problem with it. It worked, in my opinion, it worked exceptionally well. But,
and it's become,
you know, if I break something, see, look at, and all the people making those decisions, and I'm not talking about the decisions that the West Board took at our management the other night, I'm talking about crowd that makes these decisions in Croke Park. They never have to worry about getting tickets. They never have to worry about going online. You know, they probably don't carry cash anywhere, these people. But, you know, they were never at probably local games. And that's a fact. And there's no point in glassing it up. And I don't know where it's going to end up. But you're going to have people now you're going to have people this year won't go to games that they would normally go to in the evening when the thing kicks off now. Say the junior championships kicks off first, even, and all those, and building up to the Premier and the Intermediate and the Senior Championships in the divisions, and then on to the County Championships. But I think at the County Championships there is going to be a problem, because people will not be able to go to. There was always a bit of discretion at the Divisional Championships, but there is not at the County Championships. And I can see a problem there. I can see people not going to see their own club playing, that club that they played for, club that they probably were. They volunteered from a young age. They're still probably doing work in some capacity within the club. They're the people who go out and sell the lotto tickets. You know, they're the people who bring young lads to matches. And just because they don't have a bank card. Now, as I said before, there are various reasons why people don't have bank cards, and especially older people. Because, you know, first of all, they don't trust them. And that's a lot. The people that were used to dealing in cash, they still deal in cash. And you know, if they want a few pounds, they go to the bank and they get it over the counter, and they have the money in their pocket. They feel very, very independent. They know what they're going. They know what they have to, the outlays that they have coming up. They have the few pounds in their pocket, and you know, the GAA games was one of those outlays that they have. That's taken away from them, Stephen, and it's not right, in my opinion.
Okay, John, well, listen, thank you very much. A lot of texts coming in on that, and we'll bring them to you after the break. The Assistant PRO of West Tipperary, John O'Shea, thanks for joining us this morning.
All right, Stephen.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tipp Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
Well, you're welcome back to Tipp Today with me, Stephen Gleeson, here just to bring you a flavour of the text before we go to our next caller. Stephen, cash is king. GAA won't take your cash. What a sign of the times. That's ridiculous. People will rue the day they let anyone else dictate how they spend their own money. That's from Barbara. Stephen, completely agree with John O'Shea. What are the GAA doing? And now GAA Plus. That's from George in Nina. In relation to the cashless situation with the GAA, if you have a cashless entrance, how many seats do you allow for? Just suppose you leave 1,000 seats and only 100 turn up at the big games. You'll have 900 empty seats, and there'll be uproar from the public then as well for sold out games. That's from Martin Brown. Another one, totally agree with that speaker. The GAA sold out on their supporters and wider society as well. Why is everything nowadays tap and go? You can't trust the phones with scam calls and text messages coming through. I prefer cash, and I feel now I'm in the minority. So there's a lot of texts coming in there, and a lot of them in favour of what John O'Shea is saying, and people just lamenting almost the loss of cash in society, really, when it comes to that. But we're going to move on here and looking at today's treatment of farm animals, and the question arises, is it a moral failing or is it an inevitable result of us being on top of the food chain? Animal advocate and campaigner Gerry Boland has been examining this idea in a recent piece that he wrote, and he joins me on the line now. Good morning, Gerry.
Good morning, Stephen. Thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, good to hear from you, Gerry. like when you're looking at this, you ask the question, is society's treatment of farm animals a moral failing, or is it the inevitable result of us being on top of the food chain? That goes back, I suppose, through the generations and evolution almost, is it, that we're top of the food chain?
Oh, well, it does. Obviously, tens of thousands of years ago, we were just another species on the planet. And then this remarkable thing happened over the period of a few thousand years, but more than a few thousand years, where we became this species which, this incredibly intelligent species. And we have dominated the planet. But I believe that intelligence and that sensibility and that ability to look into the future and that ability to have kind of a moral conscience, which, we feel probably the animal kingdom generally doesn't have, that comes with a great responsibility. But unfortunately, our ingenuity and our intelligence and our great compassion, there is another side to that coin, which has ended up with us, as everybody knows who's listening, with us trampling on the planet and almost destroying the home that we live on. And in terms of the food that we eat, we have created a system of production of animal agriculture. And I'm talking about intensive farming, Stephen. I'm not really talking about extensive agriculture. And I'm not even talking about eating meat, even though I haven't eaten it for 40 years. I'm talking about the food that the vast majority of your listeners, if they're eating meat, eat. And I'm talking about pigs and chickens in particular. So we've created a system where literally billions of farm animals never see the light of day. And, the system is based on an economy of scale. The whole point of it is that you cram as many animals as possible into as small a space as possible and feed them as quickly as possible so that you can slaughter them and put another lot in. And that's how it's a conveyor belt system. People, your listeners, are probably vaguely aware of that. I am acutely aware of it because I visited these places. And so I do believe that we have a moral responsibility if we're going to bring animals into the world for the sole purpose of slaughtering them and killing them and eating them. I don't personally agree with that, but that's not what this conversation is about. But if we're going to do that, I believe we have a moral responsibility to give them the best lives that we can. And we've ended up with a system which gives them the worst lives that is possible. And we probably don't have time to go into the actual individual cases of these animals and the conditions they live in. But I do have plenty of information on that. But I would say, if you don't mind me just saying this, I think a lot of your listeners won't want to listen to what I say at all. But because the world is changing so fast, there are now a very large number in the Western world, a very large number of vegetarians and vegans, much, much more than there ever were before. So almost every family in the country probably has a family member who's either vegetarian or vegan. So I would say there's a lot of people who have been eating animals all of their lives, even though they call it meat, but they've been eating animals all of their lives. And I would say that there are a large number of them who feel somewhat uncomfortable about it. They don't want to deal with it because they've been doing it all of their lives. It's part of the culture. They like the taste of meat, obviously. They feel that it's good for their health. But I would say a lot of people feel quite uncomfortable about the fact that behind the food that we eat is an animal with an intelligence and an ability to feel. And if you look into their eyes, any individual animal, whether it's a pig, a chicken, whatever it is, they will look back at you and you will see that there is a life in there, and that it's not just an economic commodity. So that's really why I wrote this and why I sent it to you. And thank you very much for letting me talk about that.
Yeah, you speak about how on factory farms across the globe, pigs and chickens, hens, rabbits and geese live out their entire lives in a windowless type sheds and crowded and stressful environment. So you're really looking for more ecological farming, more humane type farming.
Well, yeah, because what has happened since after the Second World War, there was a real need, I suppose, to feed the world, in economies which had been destroyed, and so it was discovered in the States largely that you could raise chickens in sheds, and that's how the whole thing began. So, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that these animals never see the light of day, and that they it's a grim life they lead. And I know your listeners probably don't want to hear it, but it is a really grim life they lead. Like pigs are killed at 6 months of age. So these enormous, like Frankenstein babies. They've selectively bred, genetically engineered, high protein diet. They've nothing to do. They're crammed into these sheds on concrete floors, no behavioural, anything to do. All of their behavioural motivations and needs are just gone. And then when they get to this huge weight at the age of 6 months, they're slaughtered. And the same with chickens. Like chickens would have lived, like the chicken that we were eating 50 years ago, typically lived about 80 or 85 days. Today's chicken will typically live for 38 to 40 days. So in other words, it grows twice the size of the chicken from up 40 years ago. And it is killed at 38 days. So I think a lot of people don't really realize that. These are just baby animals that have been killed that are ending up in our supermarkets. And, you know, the life of a broiler chicken, which is the type of chicken that people eat, the life of a broiler chicken in the last 5 days is horrendous because it literally has about the size of an A4 sheet to stand on. That's because it's so crowded. And because its breastbones are selectively bred to grow and not its legs, they have brittle bone syndrome. Many of them collapse and can't stand up, and therefore they starve. So it's a bit of a horror show, to be honest with you, Stephen, and it's not something that most people would want to see. But if we're going out into a supermarket and we're buying factory farmed sausages and rashers, and we're buying factory farmed chicken, and 99% of all the chicken meat that people will buy in Ireland, whether it's imported or whether it's raised in Ireland, 99% of all of it will be raised in these sheds. So if you're buying that, you're being complicit. So I suppose my message to people this morning isn't necessarily that they should give up eating animals, even though I have, but that, you know, at the very least, we have a moral responsibility not to support industries that cram these animals into these sheds and give them such appalling lives. Like, we do have legislation, you know, we've animal welfare legislation that is meant to protect these animals, but the legislation is an absolute joke. You know, all legislation, animal welfare legislation around the world is partially based on the idea of 5 freedoms. I'm sure all your farmer listeners will know this, and many of your listeners will know as well. The 5 freedoms is a very basic standard of animal welfare, and the 5 freedoms are freedom from hunger and thirst, freedom from discomfort, freedom from pain, injury and disease, freedom from fear and distress, and freedom to express normal behaviour. Now, 4 of those out of the 5 it's a joke. You know, they're certainly fed, and most of them don't go thirsty, but all of them suffer discomfort. All of them suffer pain, injury and disease. There's mutilations in every part of animal agriculture. All of them suffer from fear and distress, and very few of them can express any kind of normal behaviour. So that's what legislation is based on, and it's a joke. And I think the one thing that consumers can do, you know, we can't change anything about wars in Ukraine. We can go on demonstrations, and people should do. We can't actually change anything, but individually we can change what we do in relation to what we eat. And it is a very powerful thing. And we can go out from tomorrow onwards, we can decide, well, I'm not going to buy intensively reared pigs and chickens. It's as simple as that.
Okay, well, it's a very interesting point you make there, Gerry, and I think we're going to probably have to wrap it up now, but briefly, free range, is that, you know, a better alternative you would feel for people who may be listening?
That's a tricky one, Stephen. I probably won't go into it. I've been to a lot of free range farms, and depending on the size of them and the scale of them, I would have severe problems with that. I think organic is the way to go. But anyway, that's a longer discussion. I don't want to kind of say anything about that without kind of being dismissive of the whole industry, but I would have serious question marks over the free range industry.
Okay, well, we'd have plenty more to discuss there another day without a doubt, but I'm afraid we're out of time this morning. But Gerry, many thanks for joining us here this morning on Tipp FM.
Thank you, Stephen.
And that's Gerry Boland, animal advocate and campaigner there. We're back soon with the news.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon, main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tipp today in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Well, you're welcome back to Tipp Today with me, Stephen Gleeson, here for Fran this week. And it is very busy here on the text line as well this morning. A lot of stuff coming through, and we'll bring you that in due course here. But I'm going to bring you the next topic now, and that is that according to recent research from the Health Insurance Authority, that's the HIA, 7 out of 10 individuals with a health insurance policy have never switched their provider or plan. And with a consistently evolving array of brokers and plans, it can be challenging to determine what's best for you. Joining me now is Dermot Goode from Health Insurance Ireland to discuss this further. Good morning, Dermot.
Good morning, Stephen.
Dermot, a lot of messages in for you here already in the last hour because I put it out there that you were coming on. But first off, what about the people who are not set on changing their health insurance? You know, what sort of a scenario does it all leave them in?
Well, do you know what, Stephen, it's not good for consumers anymore. I mean, because all that happens is what people don't realise is that benefits are changing left, right and centre. So the risk is if you stay on the same plan, as well as potentially overpaying hugely for your cover, which nobody wants to do, the thing is they're changing benefits. Like, for example, Leia Healthcare have changed benefits across about 32 of their plans from the 1st of April. That's impacting thousands of their customers. So if you roll over on the same plan, even though you're paying more money, you could actually end up with less cover. So there's a real risk now for consumers if they don't actively shop around, you know. And look, what I'd say to any of your listeners now, if you're on the same plan for 3, 4, 5 years or more, you know, if you're not on one of these corporate plans, which anybody can join, if you have everybody on the same plan, if you don't have a small excess on your policy, you know, these are all signs that you are overpaying for your cover. But people don't realise, like there's new plans coming on stream all the time. Like Irish Life Health have just brought out a new plan now because they're after winning a big scheme. And Leia Healthcare are bringing out some new plans on the 1st of June as well, because I'm sure they've won new schemes as well. And they're all doing this. So if you don't review your cover, you miss those deals. So what I would say to everybody is, look, one phone call to your existing insurance company, and all you have to ask them, just tell them your current plan is too expensive. And all you have to ask them is, do you have something similar with similar benefits that's cheaper? And you just sit back and let them go through. You know, people debate about the number of plans, but my message to people is, don't you worry about that. Let the insurance companies, that's their job to go through all the plans. But if you don't make that one phone call, yes, you could end up hugely overpaying for your cover, which nobody wants to be doing. So my advice now to everybody is, look, you know, exercise your consumer rights there. Excuse me, shop around, don't be complacent. And by the way, Stephen, one other thing that I suppose people kind of get confused about, there is no such thing as loyalty in health insurance. You cannot be rewarded by the insurance company for staying with them for 20, 30 years. Now, I understand people probably don't like change, but at the same time, whether Dermot Goode is with one company 5 years or 35 years, if we're both on the same plan, then we have the exact same entitlements, the exact same benefits. So shopping around is key.
I have a good few messages coming in here, Dermot, and I'll go straight to them to get through a few of them. The first one here, I have VHI 306. I'm in my early 20s, but I have a chronic illness. Is there any better plan within VHI or from another provider that offers better cover? That's someone with VHI 306.
Now, do you know what I'm going to say to Stephen? So there's a problem with their plan name. So there actually isn't a plan called VHI 306, but I think what I know is there is a plan with VHI called PMI 3613. Okay. And that plan is very good cover. It's €1,974. So what I would say to that person, if they have a chronic condition, so the first thing for me is Do they have good cover? Yes, they do. Now, the second thing is, okay, they need to be very careful now changing their cover, because when somebody has an existing condition and they have good cover, well, we're reluctant to, I suppose, change the cover because that could maybe adversely impact them. But I'm going to give them two suggestions. If they want something similar, but they need to save money, there is a plan with BHI today called PMI 3914. Okay, now it's not identical, it is similar. Today it's priced at €1,658. It is going up on the 1st of June, I think, to about 1,797. But if they wanted to save some money, check out that plan with BHI, PMI 3914. Now, Stephen, another recommendation for them. Let's just say they're incurring a lot of outpatient expenses, because when somebody has an existing chronic condition, sometimes we will look to upgrade their cover. I would encourage this person, when they're speaking with VHI, also check out a plan called PMI 2410. It's €2,245. So it's an extra, we'll say, €280 thereabouts for their cover. But the new plan, the 2410, now they're going to get 75% back on every GP, every consultant visit. They get 24 physiotherapy visits. The outpatient cover on that plan is phenomenal. So I would suggest to that person, check out either of those two plans and see what they think. But they do have good cover with VHI at the moment. That's the important thing to point out. They have selected well.
That's good stuff. Another one here, Stephen. I have a family with young children. Which plan from Leah or VHI should I go for that offers the best combination of paediatric care, maternity and outpatient services?
Okay, so there's quite a bit in that. Now, what I would say straight away, we don't know, do they have cover at the moment, or are they thinking of joining? We don't know their ages. But what I would say straight away, Leah Healthcare at the moment have a deal. Now, they all have deals, but the Leah deal at the moment is very attractive. So this person says they have young children. So let's assume they have 2-3 children under 18. There's a free cover deal available with Leah right now. So what they could do is they could, for example, check out, let's just say they have 3 children, Stephen. They could check out the Signify plan for the eldest child, called Signify, and then the 2 younger children, or any more children under 18, there's a free cover plan with Leah called Flex 125 Choice. Flex 125 Choice, very good cover. And now the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th child under 18 is completely free. Now then for mum and dad, it really depends on what the requirements are. But I would suggest, look, if they're looking for mid-level cover, just check out the Access Health scheme with Leah, Access Health. It's about €1,090. If they want a mid-level plan, you're looking at maybe the Inspire Health scheme or the Inspire Care. It really depends what their budget is, right? But I would definitely get them to check out the Inspire Health scheme. Maybe it's a good mid-level option with Leah. And that type of plan, those plans, let's just say, are around €1,600 per adult. Now, Stephen, before I confuse all of your listeners here, what I would say to anybody who's thinking of joining, the first thing you do before you phone any health insurance company is decide yourself how much you can afford to spend. So, for example, that family could phone up Leah Healthcare and they could say, right, we have €3,000 to spend for our family. That's it, no more. What's the best deal you can give me for all of my family for that €3,000? And once again, you sit back and you let them work out the various calculations and the plans. But Leah, for any family right now that have 2 or more children under 18, whether they're joining or renewing, they do have a free cover deal right now for the 2nd, 3rd, 4th child, Flex 125 Choice. Now, to be fair to the other insurance companies, VHI are giving, I think, a 25% discount on their enhanced care schemes for kids under 18. So there are still good deals with them. And the new provider, Level Health, they also give free cover on their plans for any children under 3. And I think they give 50% discount as well for children on the plans B and C. So really what I'm saying to your listeners here now, Stephen, if they have young families, sometimes you must pick up the phone to the insurance company, because lots of times they won't proactively offer you these deals. But when you phone them up, they definitely will. So the key thing is to pick up the phone and engage. But hopefully that helps that listener with the young family.
Good stuff, Dermot. Another one in here. Stephen, can you ask Dermot this? I'm in my early 60s, not happy with the plan I have, but I'm looking for one that has extensive cover for age-related health issues and possible hospital stays.
Okay, and Stephen, it's a pity we don't know what plan they have, because then I could tell them exactly maybe what to upgrade to. But look, generally speaking, for somebody who's maybe in their 60s, okay, and just going on exactly what they've asked for. So a kind of a generic assumption would be they want full cover for major orthopedic issues like hip and knee and shoulder replacements, or eye-related conditions such as cataracts or injections for macular degeneration and things like that. And those plans are available, but they are expensive. So, for example, the kind of plan that they need to be looking at, Leia Healthcare have a plan called Simply Connect, €2,714. And it is a very good plan. VHI have a very good plan called Advanced Care 50 Day to Day. And Advanced Care 50 Day to Day is €2,885. So, what people will now realize, and this is what Leia changed on the 1st of April, as we get older and if we need full cover for the joints and for the eyes and the things, these are generally the things that start impacting us as we get older. Those plans are available, but they are very expensive. Whereas if, younger people or maybe people who they're not really worried about a hip or a knee replacement or so forth, they can get amazing cover for €2,200 per adult or whatever. So hopefully that's what that listener is looking for. If they get a chance, Stephen, to text in or email in the name of their current plan, then I can tell them whether they have good cover or not or whatever. But hopefully that helps them.
Perfect. And they can text back here again and I'll get to that message. Another one in here. What benefits does the VHI Healthcare Complete Plan offer in terms of private hospital coverage and specialist consultations? Another one for you there, Dermot.
Yeah. Now, do you know, Stephen, I tell you what, and I hate saying this, but there is no plan with VHI called Healthcare Complete. So I'd say now they may be mixed up slightly. There used to be a plan with Irish Life Health called Business Plan Complete, which is now gone. There are plans with Leia called Complete Simplicity. So do you know what, Stephen, rather than me giving, I'm going to give a generic answer, but if that person, once again, can maybe text back into the show just with their exact plan name. And I have to say, I have huge sympathy for consumers because there are so many plans and a lot of the names are so similar, okay? And what I would say to people, if you have a membership card, a physical membership card in your wallet, the insurance company stopped giving out these cards 5 years ago. It's all on the app now. So you always, to get the exact name of your plan, the current name, you always have to log into your app because you could be working off the wrong plan. But what I would say to people, look, good cover, good health insurance cover, like mid-level plans. If you want to have a decent standard of cover, you need to have at least a mid-level plan. And a mid-level plan will cover you in the public hospitals, like the University Hospital in Limerick. It will also cover you in the private hospitals like the Bon Secours in Limerick or Tralee or Galway or the Galway Clinic. Now, the best mid-level plans on the market right now, these are all around €1,200, between €1,100 and €1,200. Plan B 300 from Level Health, the Access Health Scheme from Leia Healthcare, the Enhanced Care 350 from VHI, and the My Plan 350 from Irish Life Health. They are the best mid-level schemes. But if somebody says to me, look, I really want to have a decent level of cover that ticks most of the boxes without throwing ridiculous money at this, they really need to be on a semi-private corporate plan. Now, don't worry about the title corporate plan. This is it's a generic term, Stephen, that they use these are the plans that are designed for all the big corporate clients. So think of all the big companies in the Limerick and Tipperary and Galway areas. They're all on these corporate schemes, but anybody can join them. So the best value corporate schemes right now, Level Health, the new company, theirs is, I think it's called Plan Pro. It's about €1,515. VHI have a really good scheme right now today, PMI 3914, it's 1658. Leia Healthcare, there's a whole range of plans with Leia, but like they have, I mentioned already the Inspire Health Scheme. That plan is about €1,614. They also have the Inspire Care, it's 1,712. And Irish Life Health have a whole range of plans, but they've just launched a new plan right now called Health Action Plus. Now, Stephen, this plan is €1,734. The benefits on this plan are phenomenal because it's a brand new scheme that they've just launched to the market. So these corporate plans are available to every consumer, irrespective of their age. And what I like about these plans, good hospital cover, good cardiac cover, but they give you guaranteed refunds on your outpatient expenses. So you're going to get money back on every GP visit, every physiotherapy consultant visit. So once again, if your renewal is coming up soon or it's coming up later in the year, you need to engage with the insurance companies and make sure you're checking out those corporate plans because they are available to everybody.
Good stuff. Another one in here, Dermot, is Leah Prosper Care better than Irish Life Health Guide 3? And that's from John.
It's a very good question. Very good. Okay, so Prosper Care from Leah, 1,840. Health Guide 3 from Irish Life, €2,245. They're both quite similar. Okay, so both very good plans, by the way. So what are the differences? Well, on the Prosper Care scheme, your shortfall for hip replacements, knee replacements, shoulder replacements, and cataracts is 40%. On the Irish Life plan, it's roughly 20%. So the Irish Life plan would have the edge there. And the second difference is the maximum claim you can make for outpatient expenses on the Leah Prosper Care is €1,000 each per year for outpatient, for GP and consultants and so on. On the Irish Life plan, it's €4,000. Okay. And the Irish Life plan also has smaller excesses. So the Health Guide 3 on paper is a slightly better plan. Okay. But, you know, it would want to be because it is €400 dearer extra per member. Now, by the way, look, you know, if that person is with Irish Life at the moment, and they're looking for better options with Irish Life, well, they need to check out that new plan that Irish Life has just launched, Health Action Plus, because Health Action Plus at €1,734 is cheaper than the Leah plan. And the shortfall on the orthopedics is €4,000, it's €6,000 on the Leah plan. So if I'm reading that correctly, Stephen, if that person is currently insured with Irish Life Health on the Health Guide 3, and they're looking for better value, they need to phone up Irish Life and check out Health Action Plus. And if they like it, they can save €500 per adult and stay with the same insurer.
Yeah, they seem to be deciding whether to go with that or the Leah Prosper Care. Another one that's in here, does the VHI Health Care Connect plan include coverage for chronic and ongoing conditions, and are there limits?
Yeah, do you know what, Stephen, I was going to say? I think there's somebody who's getting their plans mixed up because there is no plan with VHI called Healthcare Connect.
Okay.
So, you know the way one person asked about Healthcare Complete and Healthcare Connect, there are no such schemes now with VHI. So I just think they're getting the names of the plans mixed up. So the problem is without the exact name of the plan, I could be giving them completely incorrect information. So they might just try and text in the exact name of their plan, but no, there is no plan with that exact name right now with VHI, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Unless they've been offered a brand new plan, Stephen, that nobody has told us about, which I doubt.
Yeah, another one here. I'm in my 20s and I'm getting a lot of joint pain and I'm looking to get healthcare for the first time. Any recommendations for me?
Yes, I would recommend, look, anybody with those types of symptoms, I would recommend they take out a good corporate plan, like the plans that I mentioned. But for example, like, you know, they can start with the following schemes. So there's, the Health Action 2 with Irish Life Health. All of these are going to be about €1,600, Stephen. So the Health Action 2 with Irish Life, the PMI 5210 with VHI. You know, maybe they might want to start even Level Health 1,515, probably the cheapest corporate plan on the market right now. Or let's just say, the one thing I was going to say, the reason why I'm recommending these corporate plans for this person is because before you go into hospital, when you have joint pain or any underlying issues that they need to investigate and make a proper diagnosis, they're going to send you from your GP to a consultant. You're going to have to get x-rays and blood tests and all kinds of diagnostics carried out. And people want to get them done quickly, but they cost. You have to pay every single time. And what's good about those corporate plans, Stephen, is you're going to get roughly 50% back on all those expenses. And even if you're joining as a brand new member, any outpatient cover on the plan commences immediately the day you join. So if you join as a new member and you have an existing condition, you won't be covered in hospital for 5 years for anything to do with the existing condition if you're a new member, but the outpatient cover will commence immediately. So I would definitely recommend to that person that they check out those corporate plans like the ones I mentioned. Now, if they're under 25, they're actually going to get discounts. They're going to get what we call a young adult discount, so they will get that cover cheaper than anybody who's maybe over 25 where they're charged the full adult rate. But they're the plans I would check out for them, first of all.
Okay, another one here. How does the Leah Choice plan support day day case treatments, it says here? And are there restrictions on certain hospitals?
Okay, now here's the thing now again, Stephen, there is no Leah choice plan. There's loads of plans with Leah that end with the word choice. So they have company care choice and other plans like that. So and the Flex 125 choice. So once again, we'd need to know the exact name of their plan, because that there is no exact plan with that exact name with Leah. However, what I would say to anybody who has a decent level of cover, once you're covered for private hospitals, you will automatically be covered for day case procedures in private hospitals. And that means colonoscopies, gastroscopies, mole removals, those types of cortisone injections for sports injuries, arthritis, things like that, cataract removal. These are all day case procedures. So if somebody has a decent plan that covers public and private hospitals, they could have no issues in terms of being covered for day case procedures. Now, what we would always say to people is, doesn't matter what plan you have, doesn't matter who you're insured with, if you have to get something done, whether it's a day case procedure or an MRI scan, or even if you're just going to see an alternative practitioner like acupuncture, osteopathy, chiropody, and so forth, never assume you're covered. Never rely on what somebody tells you, that, you should be covered, or the hospital or the doctor or the secretary. They mean well, but the only people that you can rely on to tell you exactly what your cover is your health insurance company. So always phone your health insurance company in advance and check everything. And if they tell you you're covered, that is recorded, it's tagged to your policy, and then you will have no issues whatsoever.
Okay, two very quick ones to finish on, Dermot. Please, could you ask Dermot, are these plans after tax? That's from Mick in Clonmel. And also, please ask if the Garda medical aid is worth joining.
Okay, so very good question. So every rate that I've quoted is with the tax relief already deducted, because we get the tax relief at source. So there's no tax relief to be claimed. It's already taken off. So when you see a premium quoted online or from the insurance companies, that's as low as it gets, because the tax relief is already taken off. Now, look, the Garda medical aid, there are these separate schemes for Garda medical aid and the prison officers and so on. They are good schemes. Now, sometimes they can be more expensive than some of the benefits, let's just say, with standard health insurance. But the benefits tend to be quite rich on those plans. So look, for anybody, let's just say, who can join the Garda medical aid scheme, no harm checking out the benefits. Now, we can't give specific advice on that scheme, because obviously it's what we call a closed scheme. It's only available, obviously, to serving and retired members of the Garda Síochána and their families. So ordinary consumers can't join those plans. So definitely worth looking at. But I would always recommend to people, before they commit to that, check out basically what's available with the other insurance companies as well, because some of those plans that I mentioned are some of the latest, corporate plans in the market, and those benefits are very good as well. But we hear nothing but good feedback based on the benefits available through the Garda schemes as well.
That's great stuff, Dermot. Listen, thank you so much for joining us this morning on Tipp FM.
My pleasure.
And that was Dermot Goode of Healthcare, healthinsuranceIreland.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On, main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tipp Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
Well, you're welcome back to Tipp Today, and I'm delighted now to welcome Siobhan MacGowan to the studio here, and we're going to chat about Unravelling Shane, the Shane MacGowan Tour, a new guide to the places in Tipperary that inspired the life and lyrics of the late Pogues singer, and that was launched by his sister Siobhan and Shane's widow Victoria Mary Clark last year, and the tour has been created in response to the worldwide influx of visitors to Nina, Lochderg and surrounding areas since MacGowan's death in November 2023 at the age of 65. Tours are now up and running and the new trail is also in development, and I'm delighted to be joined by Siobhan here in the Nina studio. Siobhan, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Stephen. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you here. And like when I was driving into Nina today, I'm looking up and there's this brilliant mural, you know, the broad, majestic Shannon lyrics from a song by Shane, and it's fantastic. Nina has really embraced Shane as he did during his life. Yeah,
well, I mean, mutual love affair, it seems. Like, I mean, Shane certainly had a huge love affair with Nina, the surrounding areas. You quite rightly said the Lochderg area, which is all of the Shannon area around here. And he had this massive love affair with it for his whole life, like little boy, tiny little boy, little cap on, running around. He was just obsessed his whole life, and he wanted to do something to pay homage to that with his life, to the people of that time, the places of that time. And it was his whole firing passion, because I remember we had conversations all the time about it. And he just wanted to do something so much. And in the end, he really did. And I think he would have been very moved, I mean, exceptionally moved, about how the people have embraced him and how they're remembering him. I mean, it really, really would have moved him so much, so much.
And Siobhan, when I think of Shane MacGowan, I think of those songs and the way he was able to bring in places and the way he was able to bring in things. His heart was in Nina in a lot of ways.
His heart was here. Like when we were young, we used to when we were going back to England afterwards, we'd be really upset going back in the car, and it would take us ages to settle down again. And I suppose you have to settle down eventually. But when we were coming back, we'd be really excited the night before, and we couldn't sleep and all that kind of stuff. And then Mum and Dad, they had this little car, the little Mini, and how we all fit in it, because Dad is not a small man. But luckily myself and Shane were young, and we used to sit on a blanket in the back of the car, and he'd be scribbling and I'd be scribbling. We'd be writing and drawing all the way over. And then we'd come by the boat, obviously, in those days. You didn't fly in those days. We'd visit Granny and Grandad in Dublin, who's Dad's mother and father. And we'd be there a couple of days, and then down in the car again to Tipperary. And so we'd arrive in Nina, great excitement, and then taking the road out to Kearney. And there was a long road that led up to the house, and we'd be jumping up and down in the back of the car, because it would obviously sometimes be early in the morning, and Uncle John with the cap, and it would be there at the gates, and the whine of the gates as we came to them, and the clanging of the chain and all that kind of stuff. And we'd run into the house, and there'd be like 12 of them, and blah, 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 gabbling, and blah, 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 and you'd be having your bread and tomatoes and cheese and tea, and great excitement to have us back. Welcome home. They'd be going, welcome home. Like, so we loved all that.
That's fantastic, and to have that warmth and those memories, and like a lot of those people when they pass away, like they live on in yourself.
Oh, totally. I mean, and I think as you get older, they do as well. I think it's really funny because, like, when you're younger, you're absorbing them and you're taking it in, and you're kind of laughing at them, aren't you? There's Auntie Nora with her taking a limp and coming across, and she's doing this and she's crossing herself, and there's me now. My old hip is going, and I cross myself when I pass the church, and I do. You start to do the things that they were doing and are doing, and you start to see them in yourself, and actually, it's a very comforting thing. It's so comforting because you really feel that you haven't lost them, like, which is amazing. Like with Mum now, as I'm getting older, like my husband laughs, like I keep forgetting things and I say the wrong thing in the wrong words and all that kind of thing. And he laughs, says, you're just like your mother, like, and that's lovely. Yeah. It's really lovely. So it's fantastic.
And that emotion, when people live on like that, it's incredible.
I mean, it really is. And I think as you get older, you really realise you're all part of the human journey. Like, you know, when you're older, you're more vulnerable. When you're young, when you're vulnerable, you're young. Then you go through a kind of more solid stage, if you're lucky, in your middle life. And then as you get older, you start to see the fragility of humanity and yourself and things. And I think it makes you more connected and more, it's a nice thing, actually. Getting older is quite nice, I think.
Yeah, it's almost a privilege that you've got that. And we saw that when in Shane's songs, he was somehow able to grasp that the history and the past and the present, and they were able to merge into the moment, you know, in some of the tunes.
Yes, So he really loved history, I think both of us realised history is like one big story. Like, I know some people were taught, I think, in the wrong way. They were taught with dates and facts, and you have to learn them. I don't think we thought of it like that. I did, and Shane did, think of it as one big story. So we were fascinated, you know. So if it was a story about medieval times, it was a story about the people in the medieval times, and, you know, the two princes in the tower, what happened in there, like, you know, and what happened to these people in this time. So he was always really fascinated with all that, and he had a beautiful sense of place. So he was romantic about place, and and people, and he watched people and the way they would go on and the way they talk and, you know, the influences in their voices. He was very perceptive like that. So, and he was able to bring all that together and merge it into his writing, and of course with the music as well. So, and you are yourself, like, you're a very talented artist in your own right as well. You take that from people as well, and you give that as well. You're almost a vessel that they're going through you. Exactly. So I remember, like, being a child, very perceptive as a child, and Shane was very perceptive as a child. You're soaking in all the time, because it's interesting. Because of course, when you're a child, people are not aware that you're listening and watching everything. So you're actually listening to everything, especially if they're saying in the next room, be quiet. Shh, because then you think, oh, this is a good one. I'm definitely listening to that. So, like, children, it's so ridiculous to do that. You've got ears. So, I mean, so you are taking in everything. And Shane was very, very perceptive like that as well, taking in everything. And bringing all those things together, the perceptions of people and place, and And this tour that you started, like, it's going to be so big, I would imagine, once it gets off the ground. Yeah. How has it started out, and, you know, what's the sense you're getting from people who have been on this? Well, actually, it's really beautiful. Actually, it's been very moving. For instance, we started off actually just before the guided tour started. We started with the Basque rugby team, the Basque Masters rugby team, who are older veteran rugby players who came to play the Nina Leprechauns, who are the Masters team here. And they were at a match for charity for Parkinson's Nina. And they came and did the tour. I can't remember how many, but let's say 20. I don't know, but let's say that. And they were all in their kind of like black berets and their red gear and all this kind of stuff. And they all went off and did the tour. So they're there in Crossafonu, they're there in Shkahana, at the Shannon and Clockprior and Kilbarron and Kearney. They're having their tea and scones in Kearney. And they really loved it. It was a real experience, and it really showed us what experience this could be for people, because it's very emotional. Because I think when they were doing the tour, or it might be the next one, we had a local guy, Jack McGrath, who was playing Broad Majestic Shannon at the Cross of Fanu. So we've got a stone there now that says, I sat for a while at the Cross of Fanu, where young lovers would meet when the flowers were in bloom. Shane MacGowan, and it's there at the gate there at the Cross of Fanu. I'm really looking forward to doing this tour. It'll be nice. It'll be really nice, because it's a real experience. It's not just a tour. You really do experience, because Mike Malampy is our tour guide, and he's telling you all the old stories and all the things that Shane would have done and said and saw, and the people that influenced him, and then you can have music. We're actually encouraging people to bring their instruments on the tour. Oh, lovely. Yes. So if you play an instrument, whatever it is, accordion, whistle, guitar, whatever it is, bring it. and then we can have a tune at the Cross of Fanu or in Kearney or wherever. Just play for us, play the music.
Oh, that's excellent, and you bring the music to the moment.
Definitely, just bring your instruments and play.
Yeah. And I mean, when I think of it there, you said clock prior, they'll take you 2 clock prior, shove you in the ground,
you stick your head back up and shout and have another round.
I mean, the lines just flow.
Yeah.
And like the energy there is fantastic.
Yeah.
As a writer, he was top class poet, but even as a singer, I think he excellent stuff.
Yeah. The funny thing is, like, he wouldn't have thought himself as a singer necessarily, but I think as he went on, he did. But he had an unusual voice, so he had the gravelly kind of gruff voice. So it's interesting because you realise that when you hear other people singing the songs, you realise, he certainly brought a certain something. Well, they're his lyrics, so he knew how to deliver each punch and each line,
Yeah, it's hard for others to get to where he was with it.
Yeah, I suppose it's like anything. When you've written it, you know what each feeling is behind each word and the rhythm of the feeling behind each word. So,
I think he's one of the best singers of older songs, even Roddy McCorley had a version of that with the Popes, I think it was, not the Pogues.
Yeah.
I thought it was the best I've ever heard.
Beautiful,
and just carries you. And you can feel that in a lot of the places around Nina and in the names that are in the songs.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's really taken it on board. Like in Broad Majestic Sound, going up Glenavee, going up and the Cross of Fanu, and that he's bringing all those places that, you see, when he was younger. Don't forget there weren't that many cars when we were younger there. So he was there, he's going to be there, in the 60s, I'm there in the late 60s getting consonants, getting cognizant. But Shane is there from the kind of earlier 60s, and there's no cars really when he's there. They're still in their long dresses with the aprons, the hair in the buns. We're still going up, when I was there, we were doing that, going up to the pump for water on the donkey and cart.
Wow, real
doing
old
all that,
Ireland.
Still when I was there, when I was doing it, when I was a kid, we were still doing that. And the fish van was coming around on a Friday, and they'd sell fish out of the van, and the eclair sweets and all that kind of stuff. So that was all still going on. So you weren't just in a car and zooming from that place to Nina or zooming to Borrisokane. You didn't zoom anywhere. You had to, you had to walk, or you had to go on the bike, or you went on which was the big excitement, the donkey and cart. That was the huge excitement. We used to go on that to Borrisokane, and that was huge, So, so you got to know all these. You're going along and you're passing the Cross of Fanu and you're smelling it and you're smelling the hay and you're getting the whole experience.
Brilliant.
So that's.
And then you had the contrast of when you went back across the water. It's very different. Right, I'm going to have to take a quick break, but do stay with us.
Yes, okay.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tipp Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
You're welcome back to Tipp FM. Stephen Gleeson here with you this morning, and Siobhan MacGowan is here in studio with me. And Siobhan, it's brilliant chatting to you. I'm really enjoying the conversation here. So you have this tour, and now there's going to be a new trail. Now the trail is huge because it's the path that Shane took, and you're kind of getting a sense of what his inspirations were and what made him and how he evolved.
Yeah. So, the trail has been there from the beginning, but we made the trail, but the guided tours started. So that means that you book a tour. It goes out every 2 weeks, second Saturdays. Yeah. And and follows the trail. So I've got it here because I'll forget it otherwise. But we have we go to Clock Prior, which is what you did about the stuck my head from the sickbed of Culcullen. He talks about that. That's where a lot of our elder relatives that I've been talking about are buried, and so there's a gravestone there, a memorial to all of them. We go to Shannon Rovers GAA ground, which our great-grandfather John Lynch founded and was the first chairperson and president of that club.
And a great Tipp jersey as well brought out.
And there is
Shane
a fantastic Tipp jersey that they sell now with Shane on it, a Tipp
Shannon
jersey,
Rovers as
and
well,
a Shannon Rovers. And we have the tour jersey now that has all Shane's drawings on it. So it has go ha 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 and all his mad little drawings and so. And Uncle John, actually, who I was talking about, is on the sleeve. It's Shane's drawing of Uncle John, and it's on the sleeve. So there's all that kind of stuff. And then we have 3 spots on the Shannon: Skahana, Lusker, and Dromineer. So that's where he watch the rowboats landing. He's talking about walking by the Shannon in the broad, majestic Shannon. The Cross of Fanu is a really big one. As I say, we have the stone there, and people seem very emotionally attached to that. There was a person, so you were talking about when we first did the trail, that was just walking, and there are QR codes there, so you can put your phone there and you'll get all the information of the history of the place and its relevance to Shane. So before we started the guided tours, there were fellas coming over, and there was one guy who had his phone, and it came on, and it came up that he was in Fanu, and he started to cry. He actually started to cry because he was in Fanu. And any time that we put the Cross of Fanu on the website or our social medias, the reaction is just phenomenal. People just adore that thing. So people feel inspired to play there. I was saying to you that like yesterday, or tomorrow, not yesterday, tomorrow we'll have this brilliant bus going out, or tour. RTE are going to cover that. Is going out with about 20 Shane fans, some of them from Netherlands, London, all over the country. They're all coming with their memorabilia to show RTE. Wow. And they're one of the guys.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tipp Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp Today with me, Stephen Gleeson, here filling in this week for Fran, and I'm delighted to be joined in studio here by one of our regulars here, the GP/wit, Dr. Pat Harold. Pat, you're very welcome to the studio.
Thanks, Stephen. Great to see you now. You're doing a great job.
Thanks very much,
I do
Pat.
it only a Wednesday, but you know, you're saying it. The worst is over.
Yeah. Pat, this week we're talking about celebrity viruses.
Celebrity illnesses. Now, Leanne came up with this one. Now, Leanne is a great girl entirely, and she's a marvellous producer. But what Leanne would think of as a celebrity wouldn't necessarily what I'd be thinking of as a celebrity. You know, my celebrities are people like, well, the only time I ever hear from them these days is they're in the obituaries, you know. So, but this is a real thing called POTS, POTS, and it's now I have to get this right. Postural orthostatic hypotension. No, sorry, tachycardia. Hypotension is different. Now, that's the first important point. Tachycardia means a fast heart rate. Now, we have actually a lot of people would be familiar with postural hypotension when you stand up and your blood pressure drops and you faint. And that's often associated with the older age group of people with Parkinson's and people on tablets that can do that to you. And if you get too much of your blood pressure tablet, you know, you can postural hypotension, so you fall around the place. But your postural Tachycardia. You're looking at me now, Stephen, like I could be explaining this
new
better.
words to me.
Yeah,
Latin,
tachycardia is, I suppose it is, yeah. Yeah, cardia is heart, cardiac, you know. It means your pulse rate goes up. So it's typically a sort of women under 35. Now, Leanne will tell you, I think Billie Eilish, who even I've heard of, might have it. And there's some other singer called Hannah or something. And basically, you stand up, and then a minute or two later, your heart rate goes up, I think 30 beats per minute faster. So if you've been investigated for this, they do things called tilt tests. They sort of turn you upside down. They do ECGs. They do stress tests just to make sure there's nothing really wrong with your heart. You know, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It does exist. It's a very real thing. But it can be mistaken for other things. I think it's kind of one of these diagnoses when you made sure you don't have something like atrial fibrillation or one of these things, the POTS. And they generally don't faint, but can feel most unwell for a little while. And there's a couple of things that help it. No real cure. One is drinking lots of water. Two, they say salt, but under medical supervision. Now, most of us, Stephen, if we eat processed food at all, and we all do, we get far too much salt. We get so much salt that we wouldn't, you wouldn't get if you were living in the wild, as they said about, as the Taoiseach said about Dermot Goode, living in the wild. So but we get far too much. So don't. What I really wouldn't like is if girls think, geez, I've got that, and then start loading up on salt, because it is not good for you at all. So and I think they say compression clothing, which I suppose means it's well known that if you wear these sort of stockings for varicose veins and things, they can help with postural hypertension, where the blood pressure drops. And that's one of the celebrity things. And it's associated also with long COVID, and it's also associated with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. What in the name of all those holy is Ehlers-Danlos? That's really supple joints and lax joints, and think of contortionists, people who can absolutely, I'm sure everybody knows somebody who's got a kind of a party trick of sort of turning a leg around or touching the back of their, it means that their joints are lax. Now, it's a spectrum. You can have it from where you're just sort of a good old spreading the piano, long hands and things like that, to a really debilitating condition where you can actually have all kinds of joint issues and vascular issues with blood vessels and things. So if you suspect that now, that would need checking out as well. So that's a lot of big words now for Wednesday morning.
Messages in here already for you, Pat. Going for bariatric surgery, although I need it, I'm nervous. Is there anything I should be doing while waiting for my appointment? Thank you.
If you're going for bariatric surgery, there's not too many places that do it. And the appointment, generally, if you're going for bariatric surgery, they do a proper psychological evaluation of you. And they see, are you suitable? You're encouraged to lose weight before it. And there's strict criteria going for it. Now, I've had a couple of patients who did it, and they never actually went through all the way, because the people who do it, and I think the nearest centre to here would be in Galway, they make sure they've got a right client for it. The thing where you run into trouble is people who fly off abroad. They get it done. They're sent back with no proper teaching or counselling or anything like that. And you can have a lot of problems. It can be too tight. It can be too restrictive. They're not told that they need to take vitamin supplements for the rest of their lives. They're not told that there's things called dumping syndrome, where you feel unwell after you eat. There's so many things they're not told. And then an awful lot of them aren't psychologically counselled. So they end up substituting, and they end up with gambling problems or alcoholism, or they go on cocaine or something, because they're missing all that sensation of comfort and dopamine that you get from eating. So if you are going for bariatric surgery in Ireland and somewhere reputable, they will counsel you and advise you. If you're flying off abroad, I would really, really do your homework well and think seriously about it. And that's just off the top of my head now. I wasn't, but I would. Anything, you see, if you go off and you do something abroad like that, there's no comeback. I have seen people who have
getting their teeth done.
I have seen people land in to Shannon Airport, and they drive past it and then they end up going straight back into hospital in Limerick and spending months there, getting the damage sort of undone. So it's something you really want to think about. The thing, and I'm not a dentist, but I know teeth. Now, I'm not saying everywhere abroad is wrong by any means, but it's very cheap to put together a nice looking website and all that, and but the aftercare, the care you get there.
So
just for example,
if
you pick up an infection, they say, we'll be flying out on the Monday and back on the Friday. And a lot of times if you've operations like that, you're not supposed to fly for quite a while. There's a lot of things to take into account.
Right.
So bariatric surgery. Now with the GLP-1, the injectables and the tablets are coming. The need for bariatric surgery, they're like getting it without, has really gone down a lot.
I have another one here for you. Can you ask Dr. Pat about this? I have a persistent cough, went to the doctor and was told to monitor it, but I'm not sure what the cause is. Would it be something that I'm breathing in during the day, or is it something else? I'm worried about it.
Well, if you're worried about it, you go straight back and find out. A persistent cough. Now, a cough after a cold, chest infection, whatever, can last a month. People expect it to be gone, especially in kids, and it can last a month. The big thing you'd be thinking about in kids would be asthma. It can be very hard to prove if you're under 2. But if you've got sort of dry skin, eczema, hay fever, runny nose, things like that, it's quite possible, in which case you need to go on a preventative inhaler.
Okay.
And but there's a load of causes. One of the ones we see quite a lot is people who are on an anti-blood pressure tablet called an ACE inhibitor. It ends in IL, something like lisinopril, captopril. And you could be on it for years, and you suddenly get this persistent cough, and that can be the cause. So you'd want to go to your doctor, and that might be the reason. But you wouldn't want to stop your blood pressure tablet just to see what happens, because your blood pressure will shoot up and you could have a stroke. So that's again. But there's so many causes of it. The post-rhinitis, the drip, the stuff going down the back of your nose is another cause. But if you have weight loss, if you're coughing up blood, if you're a smoker especially, these are all things that should never be ignored, and get it checked out further.
Get it checked out. Perfect. And I suppose those things are all year round, really. People seem to have those type of respiratory.
Depends what's causing it, Stephen. I mean, there's lots of causes. It's like saying my car engine is making a funny sound.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're doing. As they say, the body whispers, then it roars.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't be going around coughing all the time. But you have to get to the bottom of it. They do things called pulmonary function tests. A pulmonary function test is where you go and you blow into a kind of a tube, and they go, and they look at the sea. It's a very good indicator of what is bothering you.
Okay.
And and there's the usual ones are the ones that sort of come and go, like the asthmatic ones, or the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and that is where your lungs are damaged nearly always by smoking. And the damage just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Now, there's ways of managing it. There's no way to reverse it, but it can be managed. But if the person isn't happy, go back to your doctor. Because I say to people all the time, like, as you are now, you are fine now. Okay, you've got something, but I'm not too worried about it. But I expect you to be better in a week or 2 or 4 or something if you don't come back. There's a course of a disease. Like, if something comes in and you think 9 times out of 10 that will go away. But if it doesn't go away, we want to know about it while we can still do something about it.
Okay, another one coming through here. Could you ask Pat, just found out recently after angiogram I've twisted arteries at age 46 due to high blood pressure, on BT tablets about 15 months, average weight. Any advice or thoughts from Pat, please?
Twisted arteries, I think you might mean blocked, or narrowing arteries. Twisting wouldn't really be something we'd be. They've got a kind of a course, but the BT tablets, I'm not sure what those are, or maybe they're statins, are they?
I'm not sure. Does it say here now?
Yeah. There's ways you can find out about your arteries. One of them is you do a calcium score, which is brilliant. There's very little radiation. It's just like a photograph, and it gives you a notion how your arteries are clogged up. It looks at calcium and deposits and things, so they could be narrowing. You're looking very frightened, Steve.
I'm concentrating.
Yeah, I know on the radio, but you look like you're going to run out the door with the stress of it all. So, if you've got hypertension, high blood pressure, and you're on blood pressure tablets, which is, it's very good. Getting the home monitor is something you could consider. Now you want to buy it from somebody good, buy a good machine, and you want to use it properly. A lot of people come in, they're not using them right. It has to be the level of your heart. You can't be talking or jigging around. You have to, and if you can leave and do it different times of the day, and see as your blood pressure goes up and down. Like if you're going into the bank manager, or yourself, Stephen, now if you're going into a big mad hurling game and you're mad for crack, your blood pressure is up, which is fine. It's supposed to be. No, when Tipper Face and Limerick, all the boys will have their blood pressure be through the roof, but there's no weakness in any of them, and it's not going to be like that. It's not going to be like that 2 hours later. So. No matter what the result is, it'll come back down. So your blood pressure goes up and down. The danger about blood pressure is, number one, if it's high all the time, the heart kind of wears out. And the other two is something could go pop. You could blow an artery, and that would give you a stroke, which is not what you want at all.
Okay, a few more messages coming in. One of them, all my life while I knew him, 58 years, my father would actually whiten his dinner with salt before every bit of food, and he died suddenly in his 96th year. I blame that salt, that bloody salt, it says.
Good man. Yeah, he whitened it. I love that. That's
great phrase.
Yeah, I mean, some people just do what they like, Look, all I can do is advise you. This is what the science says.
Another one, nasal drip is making me withdraw socially. Months of antihistamines are having no effect. Any suggestions or advice? What could I do?
You want to see what's going on in there. Now, if you were to see an ear, nose and throat person, they'd probably start off with a CAT scan of your sinuses to see if you have polyps. Because if you have long-standing allergic rhinitis, you get polyps, which are like little mushrooms growing in your nose. Like you've got these sinuses around you're starting to look frightened again. But they're like little rooms, with one entrance around up above your eyes and under your eyes, the maxillary, and they can fill up full of gunge. And if you've got polyps and things, they're blocked a lot of the time. So there's nasal sprays, there's antihistamines that you take. What the ear, nose and throat people do is they get a little thing like a bootlace, this anaesthetise your nose, and they look in all around the cavity. And sometimes they might take you in and wash it out or something like that. But sometimes you might need a course of antibiotics, just to clear it off if it's all very, what you call it, mucopurulent. But like socially withdrawing, I wouldn't. Usually with these things, you notice it more than anyone else. But social withdrawal isn't really a great notion, and there is a fix. It is. There are various fixes for these things.
Last one, Pat. Just here to ask you about the WHO chief. Says he's deeply concerned by the scale of the DR Congo Ebola outbreak. Another shocking
He should
story.
be, and the Americans withdrew aid from the World Health Organization. They demonized it, first of all. And now the thing is, where all these things that come from, all these guidelines and things are the World Health Organization. And they just pulled funding. And it's estimated by the Lancet that if between 2005 and 2025, 2030, if that situation comes, there'd be an extra 4.5 million deaths by AIDS. There'll be an extra 600,000 cases of tuberculosis. There'll be all these premature babies and all their care. They're picking on the weakest and most deprived people going. And there's no good reason, because these viruses don't understand borders. They don't care if you're an American or where you're from. They don't care. They will do what they have to do. Now, there was Mike Ryan, who is from Sligo, that was the World Health Organization, whose father was from somewhere around between Ardcroney and Borrisakane, was the man who used to be in charge of this. He covered 27 Ebola outbreaks, and they didn't get much further. The SWAT team went in and took them out. So what the Americans are at, the American present government, is endangering the lives of everybody on the planet. And with climate change, which they deny, all these things are becoming much more prevalent, and they're getting closer. There's mosquitoes in the south of England. There's the Asian hornet. Today, by the way, is World Bee Day. So do something for biodiversity today. Let the grass grow and don't spray. But because we're all connected.
Yeah,
we're all connected, and the Biodiversity Week is on at the moment. So these viruses just will do their thing. They'll reproduce. That's what they have to do. Should we be concerned? We should be concerned about global politics, really, because it's not being it's cruel, and money badly spent will not sort anything. Now, I'm hoping that the World Health Organization, even though it's vastly defunded and run down, will go in. I mean, malaria. They combat malaria all the time. They think malaria nets. It's not all vaccines. If you're not keen on that, it's education. Oh, mind you, the Americans also pulled the U.S. aid, so loads of people won't be as educated as they were. Like millions and millions and millions of children are affected here. So is it serious? This Ebola one might be contained, and we can get on with our lives. I think it's funny that there was a few cases of hepatoviruses on a cruise ship, and everybody got really excited. Yet the kids in Gaza are living among rats and poverty and misery, and nobody worries about them at all. You can be sure every kind of a thing, and Weil's disease and every kind of blood-borne infection is all rife in these camps. But the only reason people really worry about Ebola virus is if they think it's going to get out and get to us. Which is, should we be concerned? I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned about climate change. I'm very concerned about the way the rise of the far right anti-scientific people in the planet. It's okay for them because they have money. They can laugh at this, But don't forget, the US is one of the worst healthcare systems of a civilized country, so-called civilized country in the world, for the greatest expenditure. If you're not a millionaire, you just die or get sick, and nobody cares about you. Nobody caring about your blood pressure or any of this, or your tablets, because they cost so much you probably can't afford them anyway. So yeah, I am concerned. That's a long answer to a short question.
Perfect. Pat, it's been an absolute pleasure. We're well out of time here and overdue. Thank you so much for calling in the studio.
Take care, and I hope you cheer up now and all this heavy stuff I've been throwing at you.
Yeah.
Okay, take care.
Thanks very much, Pat.
Bye-bye.
We're going to take a quick break. Back with more shortly.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon, main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tipp Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
You're welcome back to Tipp Today with me, Stephen Gleeson here, and it's time now for our Tipp FM Investigates slot. And this week, Rachel Kelligan examined the home care sector to see what pressure they are under.
Tipp FM Investigates, funded by the News Reporting Scheme. The health of Tipperary.
When you're out with clients and you're out with families and you see how much they're trying to do, and it's like you really want to be able to provide the level of service that you can, and unfortunately we just don't have enough resources to be able to kind of do it.
That is Majella Broder's Clinical Operations Manager at CarePlus Waterford and South Tipperary. She manages a team of carers based in Clonmel. And Majella, would you like to tell us a bit about your role and the role of CarePlus in Tipperary?
I manage a team of carers that support clients living in the community, and we work mainly for home support service. We also cover agency staff working in residential settings across the region. Predominantly, we work in home support services, and we provide both private services to support people living at home, and we also offer services that are paid for by the HSE as private providers, covering home support services.
Have you noticed added pressures on Care Plus recently or in recent years?
Yeah, I definitely feel that there's challenges in providing home support services. Ireland is definitely facing a deepening crisis in home support services, with new data showing both soaring demand and shrinking workforces. National waiting lists for home supports have surged by 13% in just 1 year, rising from 4,805 to 5,406 people waiting to be assigned a carer. Of those waiting, 2,198 are new applicants that are waiting for care to be provided in the community. And there's a further 3,200 are existing service users seeking additional hours that cannot be provided. The pressure is particularly acute in rural regions where recruitment and retention challenges can be a problem.
So would you think rural areas are affected more across Tipperary?
Yeah, I definitely think it's harder in rural areas to provide a service. So we have clients that routinely will be coming to us asking for a service, but we mightn't necessarily have carers in that area. So that definitely is a challenge. And that's a challenge that's echoed across, with my colleagues, because we collaborate a lot with other private providers and we work very closely with the HSE to try and optimise services. And that's definitely a challenge where people in remote areas, it's harder to get services because there's lack of carers in that area.
And what impact does that have on the care that can be given to service users?
The carers, obviously, if they're travelling further to provide a call, that it means that they're travelling longer, and very much we'll say for home care at the moment is based around task-focused care. So it's providing a shower or helping somebody get up or whatever. So it's very time restrained. So you literally might have 30 minutes or 45 minutes to perform a task or to provide somebody with the support, maybe to have a shower, get out of bed, or a medication prompt. So if you're travelling, if a carer is travelling for a long time, it can often mean, especially in areas like Tipperary, that they're travelling longer than they're actually with the clients.
And what would you say is contributing to these strains affecting Tipperary?
I would feel that we definitely have a lack of resources, a lack of carers in the area. So that means that a client might come to me and they might say, oh, I'm approved for 10 hours a week, but we mightn't necessarily have the staffing for that. So that's a huge problem where we might only be able to provide a certain amount of the care to the person. And we might have to be prioritising care to earlier in the week that maybe family might be able to pick up then at the weekend and things like that. So that's definitely hard when carers aren't able to provide the level of care that the client needs. I also find that clients are sicker, they're more frail in the community. Clients definitely want to be at home. We want clients to be at home. It's a lovely role being able to provide care for somebody in their community. It's not many jobs where you're welcomed into a person's home to provide that care. So that aspect of care is lovely, but definitely carers are under time constraint to be able to get the task done within the allocated time and then to move on to the next client. So that definitely is a challenge. Our goal is to be able to provide person-centred care, but when you're under time constraints, that definitely makes it more challenging. For example, say if we go into somebody that might have dementia, they need time to be able to process what the tasks that they need to do, and the time pressure definitely is a challenge when you're trying to support the person, give person-centred care. So that is a huge challenge.
And how does this affect families, and how can care support families?
I meet so many families, and they're Generally, they're delighted to be able to get the support. They could have been on a wait list for a while, or the application process might have taken 4 to 6 weeks to be approved. So once they're kind of meeting you, they're delighted that they're being able to get the care, but then they're realising that it's only for a very small amount of time. So it's like 45 minutes and you're trying to manage the expectation of that care within that time frame. So generally people would come to you. We would have a lot of clients that we would offer private care as well in conjunction with the HSC care, so that we're able to facilitate a better level of care for the client.
Is there enough support for carers?
Carers, healthcare generally is paid poorly. I think we try to offer a high level of support here within the office, in that I support the team. We also have a CNM and we have a field care supervisor to try and offer that support. But I think caring at its very nature is very challenging. The carers, I see carers go over and above every single day. The bond that they have with clients is just amazing. They give so much to their care that it is important that we as the management team are able to support them as well. But it's definitely a very rewarding career, but it's also very challenging in that you see so many people going through such, some hard times. We don't just cater for older people, we also cater for other people with different levels of disabilities. We also have a team of nurses that are supporting advanced care, clients that need more specific high-tech care. So it's supporting that range and level of people across the spectrum.
And does that have effect on other services or the hospitals?
Hospitals have already warned that patients who are medically fit for discharge are remaining in hospital beds simply because no home care package can be secured. Today alone, 10 patients in Tipperary University Hospital are medically fit for discharge but remain categorised as delayed transfers of care, with the lack of home care support likely to be a contributing factor.
What effect would staying in hospital have on patients or service users?
Well, unfortunately, the longer a person is waiting to come home, it affects everything. It affects their mental health, it affects their frailty, because obviously in hospital they're unable to move around, whereas at home they'd be able to be pottering around in their own environment. So from every part of their well-being, it's enhanced by being at home. So every day that a person is in hospital longer, it's taken that opportunity from them to be at home, be well, be with their own people. So yeah, it's hugely important to get home as quick as possible.
So it's just so crucial for people to be able to stay at home.
Absolutely crucial. Every day across Tipperary, there's hundreds and hundreds of carers supporting clients to live at home. And that's whether it's helping them get out of bed in the morning, supporting them with personal care, with washing, medication prompts. There's hundreds of carers supporting people all across Tipperary. It's just vital. There's so many people. There's some of our clients, the only person that they actually may see is actually their carer that day. Some people are so isolated across the country. The carers are just vital in providing that support and that link to the community. We also provide an awful lot of dementia support hours, and that's hugely important because it kind of moves away from the task-focused care, home care model. And as part of the dementia model of care, we provide a huge amount of support for clients with dementia across the country, and that enables us to give 6 hours care to a client and a family member that is struggling with dementia. And these 6 hours are really looking at the client with dementia from a holistic way, supporting them by improving their quality of life. We do activities, we do tasks, we do pamper sessions, and it's a lovely way in which we're able to provide home support and provide care outside the task focused of home support.
And is your service means tested?
It isn't actually means tested. The public health nurse generally goes out and does an assessment of needs, and then that is then sent off to the home support office, and then they provide then the care, whether it's provided by the HSE or it's offered out then to the private providers.
But are people entitled to that level of care?
Unlike nursing home care, under the Fair Deal scheme, there is currently no statutory entitlement or legal right to receive home support in Ireland. Many families are forced to supplement HSE hours with privately funded care.
What supports do you think need to be put in place to help carers across the county, as well as families in Tipperary that are looking to use caring services?
I think a proper workforce strategy would be great, to be really looking at home support carers and supporting people to start a career and a role within home support. Making it more attractive for people to work in home support is really important. As part of Sláinte Care, we want people to be living at home. People want to be living at home. And I suppose it's important that we really look at the workforce and how we're going to be implementing that. Like, if our age profile of people over 65 is going to nearly double in the next 15, 20 years, but yet our workforce is reducing, these don't line up in that we're going to be able to provide care for people going forward. So we need to be really looking at it and how we're going to be able to address it going forward.
Across the board, all forms of care are being affected by these issues. Richie Malloy is a local county councillor with over 20 years' experience working for family carers. Have you noticed a shift in the pressure on carers in Tipperary recently?
Family Carers Ireland has noticed huge pressure on family carers, in the last couple of years, and certainly in the last couple of months, because of the way the oil crisis is going. It's put enormous pressure on family carers, especially carers living in, say, rural areas that rely on home heating and that. Like kerosene, for example, has literally doubled in price there in the last couple of months. And you have to remember all the time that carers that are lucky enough to qualify for the carers allowance, the carers allowance is only €237 a week, which is quite small. It works out at something like $150 an hour. So nobody can accuse up to be a family carer. It's just something that happens, the mum, the dad maybe gets sick, or maybe you're a child with special needs, and the next thing you know, you're the family carer.
And is family care based off a means test system?
Yeah, unfortunately, the carers allowance is still means tested. The present government have promised to abolish the means test in the lifetime of this particular government. So it has improved. The disregard for the means has improved in the last budget, so it's not as tight as it was a couple of years ago. So that would be the one area I would say that has improved, and it's not as hard to get the carers allowance now because of means. You're allowed quite a generous disregard of your means. The biggest issues kind of facing carers today really are the cost of living is huge. Lack of services now would be a big one, lack of home helps, that type of thing, therapies. There's big, long waiting lists for those, and that seems to be getting worse as time goes on. The $237 a week is very small. We're saying it should be at least brought up to, do you remember the COVID payments were $325? So we're arguing that the carers allowance should be a minimum of $325 a week, and that would go some way towards making it easier to keep the person at home.
And how would that affect carers and the care that they're able to give?
What really happens is, and say I'm working with family carers literally over 20 years at this stage now, but what I've seen from carers that, generally family carers that are, certainly carers that are caring on a 24/7 basis are just really exhausted. And what happens is if they don't get the proper resources from government, they end up putting their loved ones into full-time care a lot sooner than need be. They're putting them into nursing homes, and nobody really wants to go into a nursing home, but sometimes the resources aren't there to keep the person at home, and that's enormous costs to the state.
And as someone who works in family care and as a local representative, What are you doing to approach these situations, and what is a priority for you right now?
I continue to lobby government all the time to impress upon them how difficult it is for the ordinary family carer. And over the years, I suppose, I would have been probably successful maybe in getting meetings with different government ministers, I suppose, to bring carers too. I was very happy there, I suppose, that we started this family carers choir in Clonmel there in the last 12 months. And that was something kind of unique for carers, that they kind of had a space of their own and they formed this carers choir, so they meet once a week. And that because a lot of carers are very lonely out there, I suppose. I think by giving carers a listening ear would be part of my role, and I suppose I do organise a lot of events.
Yeah, and what do you need from government right now? What do you think they should prioritise?
In this common budget, I'm calling on the government. I put in a motion actually at Tipperary County Council there recently, calling on the government to exempt the carers allowance from being taxable, because that seems kind of crazy to be taxing carers on the carers allowance. It has been the practice since it was introduced, but I was happy that the motion was passed unanimously by Tipperary County Council, calling on the Minister for Finance in the upcoming budget to exempt carers from income tax, and as well to rise the carers allowance from the 270 to 325.
That is all we have time for today. Thank you very much to Richie Malloy and Magella Brothers.
Tipp FM investigates. Funded by the News Reporting Scheme. The health of Tipperary. Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
Welcome back to Tip Today, and we're going to go to the phone lines again here now. And Larkspur Park is hosting its Tennis Open, its annual Open at the moment. And Darren Ryan from Larkspur Park Committee is on the line. Good morning, Darren.
Good morning, Stephen. How are you?
Good, Darren. And huge festival of tennis going on currently in Cashel at Larkspur Park, and a really big tennis open. How many years has it been played, and have you many entries for it this year, and how is it all going?
Yeah, so we're very fortunate in Larkspur Park in Cashel, Stephen. This is our 15th annual Senior Tennis Open. We've just under 400 entries, which is a huge number. We're probably one of the biggest open weeks in Munster outside of Cork, which is a huge achievement for the club. We've representatives from over 30 clubs right across the country. Actually, we've people travelling from Killarney, from Athlone, from Naas, from Kilkenny, and predominantly from a lot of mainly our own club, obviously, and then a lot of our neighbouring clubs, such as Kilfeacle, Mitchelstown, New Inn, and the clubs in Tipperary Town. So it's a huge event. We've got a fantastic group of volunteers in Larkspur Park who are always willing to put their shoulder to the wheel to make sure that the Tennis Open is a huge success. It's one of the events where we get a lot of very positive feedback from people who travel to the park. Larkspur is always very open and very welcoming, and as well as it being a tennis event, it's also a very social event that people come and enjoy and are able to watch some fantastic games of tennis. So we're in the middle of it at the moment. We started last Thursday evening with the finals being played this coming Saturday. So things are beginning to tighten up a little bit on the schedule.
Absolutely. And like when you attempt to host an event like this, so much volunteering goes into it, and you need sponsorship also. I presume that's a big part of it.
It is indeed. We're very fortunate, Stephen, and very thankful to the Horse and Jockey Hotel. This is their third year sponsoring our Senior Tennis Open Week. and that's a huge support and benefit for us to be able to put on and host the event, and indeed to be able to provide prizes. But we're also extremely thankful to the businesses of Cashel and surrounding areas who are always to the forefront in donating spot prizes, be it vouchers, whatever it may be, for us to be able to run a raffle, which also generates income for the club. So sponsorship is a huge part, and as I said, the people and the businesses of Cashel have always been very forthcoming and supportive of Larkspur Tennis Club, and we really appreciate that.
And to run something like that in 2026, it takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of sports offered there. I know there's pitch and push, there's squash, badminton, as well as tennis, and you have a lot of plans for development over the coming years, and that all takes time and effort too.
It does. So we're very fortunate. Larkspur is in the middle of the town of Cashel, so it's within walking distance for everybody, with an array of sports, as you've just mentioned there. But we do have significant plans over the next 2 to 3 years, primarily the redevelopment of the Nissan Hut, which is an old army hut that was actually moved from Kilworth Barracks up to Larkspur Park decades ago. It has served us quite well, but the members and indeed the committee in the park are anxious to try and redevelop that and create a nice, safe, modern, accessible facility for everybody to use. So we're hopeful that we can move at the tender stage on that in the coming weeks, and hopefully try and have construction maybe by year end or beginning of 2027, which would have a huge positive impact on the provision of the services that we can provide also in the park.
Yeah, and Darren, the history of it, Larkspur Park, how did it get its name and how did it all come about? How long is it there in Cashel?
So Larkspur came from a horse, Stephen, that was owned by Raymond Guest, who was an ambassador, former US ambassador to Ireland. And the horse was trained by Vincent O'Brien out in Ballydoyle, and won the Epsom Derby in 1962. And when Mr. Guest was appointed the ambassador, the US ambassador to Ireland in 1965, he donated a sum of money to the Lions Club in Cashel to purchase a land for recreation activity for the people of Cashel. So the Lions Club purchased what is now Larkspur Park, and it's there. We're actually celebrating a significant anniversary next year.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.